So, now we know something about the organizations that play a role in Dutch water management. Let us look at the practicalities too. How do all these organizations, with their specific responsibilities, coordinate and interact? In this coordination, the preparation of policy documents plays a central role. All organizations on different levels, with specific responsibilities, prepare their own guiding policy documents. However, while preparing these documents, most of the other organizations involved in water management contribute, and the content of their policy documents are taken into account as well. For example, when a water board writes a water management plan, they will take the content of the national and provincial plans into account. In this way, the preparation of these reports becomes a platform for continuous interaction. This involves involvement of multiple government levels and vertical coordination between them is something that is called multi-level governance in the scientific literature. This way of working is to a certain extent also prescribed by national law in the Netherlands. For spatial planning, a similar way of working exists. National government takes responsibility for planning of highways and railways, ports and airports, energy and housing. Provinces then further detail these plans and are responsible for part of their implementation. Municipalities do the same, but have the specific task of licensing land use changes. The role of water boards in spatial planning is still defined as facilitating, indicating that it's their responsibility to make the planned land use functions possible. This role is, however, more and more under discussion, as more and more professionals in water management and spatial planning believe that water management needs to be more guiding in spatial planning, rather than just facilitating. Also in spatial planning, a rich diversity of planning documents constitutes the basis for coordination through interaction between national government, provinces, municipality, and increasingly also water boards. The most relevant at national level are the so-called spatial planning core decisions. These core decisions are important for the entire country and, because they are based on decisions by the parliament, have a strong guiding status. These core decisions not only exist for spatial planning of the entire country, but also for specific domains of national relevance, like the Schiphol Airport region and Room for the River. The spatial planning core decisions, Room for the River, like many other large decisions in the Netherlands, has an interesting history that shows that such large decisions do not come out of the blue, but they often result from a structural change in the way a society thinks about problems and how to solve them. Such decisions do not happen overnight, of course. The prelude to the spatial planning core decision, Room for the River, took at least 20 years. Also, it had less to do with the very structured and formal institutional setting of water policy and spatial planning in the Netherlands. First, the so-called Plan Ooievaar, or Plan Stork, of 1987 described the future of the Dutch rivers from an ecological perspective, taking the return of the black stork, a bird that disappeared from the Dutch river landscape, as an iconic goal for an ambitious plan. This plan was written on personal title by a group of involved and motivating experts. Following this plan, a series of reports were published by the World Wildlife Fund, an independent advisory commission to the national government, a study by Rijkswaterstaat, and the National Water Management Policy Plan that marked a shift in thinking about rivers towards a more ecological perspective. A more dynamic river landscape in which rivers would be allowed more space for the natural dynamics. The near disaster of the 1990s was the direct trigger for the government to launch the Room for the River. Already in 1996, the government issued two important documents. First, the Delta Plan Grote Rivieren, large rivers, to accelerate dike reinforcements. Second, the Ministries of Transport and Water Management and of Housing, Spatial Planning and Environment presented a policy document in which they outlined the main points for Room of the River. Hey, wait, what happened here? We have a country that's prone to flooding, where engineers dominate the decision-making about water management, and that was flooded only 1 year before. What happened? How did they manage to make this shift so fast? Because only 1 year after the last flooding of 1995, that indeed sounds like very rapid for decision-making. However, as we saw in the previous slide, there was a long build-up to this moment. Also, these rare extreme water levels in the rivers in the 1990s were actually expected to become more common in the future due to climate change, causing urgency. However, it shows that events can act as a trigger to temporarily accelerate decision-making. The main objective specified in this 1996 document was more room for the river, durable protection of humans and animals against flooding. By the way, here they don't mean your favorite pet, they mean cattle. And third, to limit material damage as much as possible. Only then the Dutch water management and spatial planning institutional machinery started the formal procedure to come to a spatial planning core decision for room for the river. Starting the procedure thus resulted from a remarkable and long-term process of change in the way the Dutch thought about their rivers. This was, however, not the only remarkable part of room for the river, because, as we will see in the next slides, also the spatial planning core decision, room for the river itself, showed again some remarkable innovations and discontinuations of traditional practice in Dutch water governance. This spatial planning core decision, room for the river, can be summarized in a room for the river part and a room for governance part. The room for the river part really formalizes the shift from dike reinforcements to also spatial strategies to flood safety. In addition, landscape quality is introduced as a second main objective of the program besides flood safety, which, as we saw in the earlier weeks of this course, means lowering water levels. And besides these objectives, the document was very strict in formulating boundary conditions on the realization of legal flood safety standards and task-setting budgets, maximum discharge capacity, and a deadline for its completion in 2015. Then the governance part. It proposed a programmatic approach, a leading role for regional governments, when appropriate of course, complementary spatial reservation to make it possible to implement measures outside the dikes, a basic package of measures with the possibility for exchange, for example by including new ones or abandoning others. This basic package consists of the projects that you see on this map. The main objective of the program, flood safety, at a maximum expected discharge of 16,000 cubic meters per second, and thus realizing the legal safety standards, was to be realized with implementing all these projects. The second main objective, improving the quality of the riverine landscape, needs to be realized within the projects, and thus is part of the programmatic approach. How this worked out in practice, we will see in week 4 of this course. But first this week, 2 aspects really stand out as deviations from historic practice: the combination of measures inside and outside the dike, and a leading role for regional governments when appropriate. Historically, Rijkswaterstaat has always been responsible for water management and river engineering, but its jurisdiction was confined by the dikes. In the Room for the River program, the river engineering toolbox was expanded to measure outside the dikes, and regional governments could play a leading role in project realization. This actually marked the end of Rijkswaterstaat's hegemony. It was experienced as a real blow for the powerful position of this organization. So in conclusion, Room for the River resulted from a shift in thinking about rivers within Dutch society and government, but it also ignited innovations in governance. Especially the governance innovations are in hindsight regarded as determining for the success of the program. These innovations emerged from a firm structure and long history of cooperation in Dutch water management and spatial planning. But they are also a breakpoint from an historic perspective. This might be the most relevant lesson when developing a similar program elsewhere. New practices in river management need to be accompanied by fitting innovations in their governance system in order to be successful. This is the real art and science of building a successful Room for the River program. Thank you.